Welcome to Yelling Into the Void, a podcast discussing and exploring topics in World of Warcraft. I'm Tevin. I'm here with Scott, as
Hello.
always. Scott, I heard Blizzard's reaching out to the very best of professionals to try and figure out what they want to do about their new top secret class that might or might not be coming out in midnight in a new email, which is now leaked.
Yeah, you remember Deep Throat and Watergate and how this is just leaked information. No one knows who it was. Yeah, so a survey came out that asked about 20 different rough ideas of classes, but the WoW content creator community being what it is, are we singling out people on this podcast? Are we the type of people that do that?
I don't know. I don't know if we should, but I do think it's funny. I think you can put two and two together.
Yeah, there was a video about leaked WoW data about new classes coming. Of course, you clicked on it. It's like, oh, there was a survey, and they asked about literally 15 different just rough ideas of classes. That's it. That's all it was. It's not a leak. It's a survey. It is funny because I got a survey last week. It was not this one. It was not this one. It was a survey. What was it asking about? It was asking about so the survey makes you agree as you take it not to stream yourself taking the survey or not to leak any images or ideas from the survey. The survey asks you not to do this, but people always do it. Mine was about bonuses with pre-orders and different game packages type stuff, and what are you willing to, what do you like, what do you dislike, yada yada yada. That's what mine was. But yeah, I mean, it's not a leak, man. It's just just Blizzard is thinking of some new class ideas and they want to run stuff by people first. That's it.
Well, I'm glad that they released that leaked document, because now that gives you and I something to maybe talk about a little later in today's show.
Hooray, content!
But this week, Scott, believe it or not, we actually have news.
We have so much news. We have so much to talk about. Oh my God.
So first off, I think the thing that we need to talk about, and I've already created the thumbnail for this video, so I know what it is, and it's just us in front of Mordor. So yeah, the One Ring to rule them all has came out today, along with the Siren Isles. And a couple days ago, actually, they announced a very, very big buff to this ring.
Yeah.
And to the point of, it's looking like people are going to be able to use this right off the get-go, when initially they were not going to be able to. It was way too low of an item level and everything. All of that said, though, the gem acquisition system seems to be somewhat locked, which, I don't know. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but the ring is just as odd as Scott and I have been talking about. It was probably going to be in the last couple weeks.
Yeah. It's interesting and surprising in ways that I wasn't really expecting. So yeah, I think it's good for conversation. I'm still not sure how much I like this idea, but it's very easy to get a 639 ring now, though. So cool.
639 ring with no stats currently, right?
You get a gem right away that puts 2,000 of your best secondary in the ring. So
okay, I'll take that.
Yeah,
I'll take that. So another thing that we had some Mythic Plus nerfs come through, which I guess is kind of a two-pronged thing, because there was both nerfs that came to Mythic Plus, but also crests got touched a little bit.
Yeah.
So the nerfs were pretty much every tank buster in the game for Mythic Plus, specifically magic damage tank busters, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, this was the save Bear Druid nerfs, I think.
And then the other thing was they nerfed almost all dispellable debuffs.
Not all of them, though. Not all of them, though. Not the ones that I think they would have nerfed. I think the ones that the ones that really hit tanks, this was definitely a pass across the board at making tanks' lives a little bit easier, especially on things like the things that it targeted was there are bosses and enemies in this game that cast hard-hitting tank busters every 12 seconds. Like the first boss of a City of Threads every 12 seconds casts a huge magic damage tank buster, and it hurts. And 12 seconds, even at the best cooldown management. Like at some point, you're just going to run out of stuff every 12
Mhm.
seconds. So this was definitely taking a look at that stuff and kind of easing it back. I think to make tanks' lives a little bit easier. I picked a hell of a season to start tanking, Devin. I have nothing to compare it to, so I'm just like listening to all the tanks talk about how terrible tanking is this season, and I'm like, yeah, no, it felt that way for me too. But what do I know? Um, Maybe I'm just doing it wrong, but no, tanking doesn't seem to be in a good place. We talked about this in the past. The kind of design nerfs to tanks at the beginning of the season that they have done has not gone over well. People don't like it. It's not really working out for them. And tanking has never been, I say this as if I have actual numbers, but I'm just going to say it anecdotally. It has never been less popular than it is right now. It seems like even the people that have historically played tank are kind of like, I don't really want to do this now.
The other part of this, though, the like dispellable debuff part that they were nerfing, I almost wonder, and I didn't read through the entire post. I probably should have for that part specifically. I read about the tank buster part and kind of their philosophy on why they were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But the debuffs, I think that they were hitting ones that not everybody can dispel.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that that was the goal because, like, when you think of hard hitting debuffs in Mythic Plus right now, like the first thing that comes to mind is the first one that you brought up to me when we read this. Is it's the last boss of Siege of Borealis, and like how ungodly hard that dot hits when you get the circle put around you.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody can dispel that, so I don't think that they felt like they needed to do anything about that.
Yeah, this is very targeted to specific to non-magic debuffs. So things that only certain tanks can dispel or certain healers can dispel. I think the big one is the cultivated poison debuff at the final boss of Arakara. That is just really, really brutal if you don't have. I mean, it's on everyone in the group, so no healer can remove it all, right? Well, okay,
Shaman.
Resto Shaman could, but they reduce the damage on that, and yeah, so it's all specific to things that only certain healers can deal with, and I think this is good overall. It's a little shame it took halfway through the season for them to do this stuff like this, but it's you and I talked about this idea of just parity, but like you want healers to be different and you want healers to play different strengths. It's like some of the uniqueness of the game is like, oh, on this healer, this dungeon's really easy. On this healer, this dungeon's really hard, and vice versa. You want that, but you want it to a reasonable level. And some of the stuff was just like, if you don't have that dispel, I don't know what you're going to do. I think the interesting thing, though, is what is not on here is some of the absolutely brutal curses in Grim Batol and Stone Vaults were not touched at all. Which surprises me because this is a really brutal season if you do not have cursed spells in your group. I think it really hurts.
Yeah, the other thing that surprised me is they were going after all of these like dot effects. And one thing, well, two that I think are very much so missing are two tank dots that are like nightmares for tanks. And the first one being the Anima Slash in Miss Eterna Scythe.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you have any amount of damage coming in with the Anima Slash, along with potentially even two of the guys who do that.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the Flame Rend in Grimbatol. Those two debuffs didn't get touched at all. And like they were doing tank hits from bosses, I think, more primarily. But those would be two things that I would look at very specifically too. But maybe it's not that big of a deal because a lot of people are playing like, if you have a warrior or a DK or a demon hunter, those aren't quite as bad. But then if you have something like a paladin or a bear, like they feel that. They feel that so much.
Oh yeah, yeah. I thought they did nerf the Gribatol one. It's Shadow Flame Slash. I thought they did nerf that.
Oh, did they?
The Flame Render is the name of the mob, but the actual ability is Shadow Flame Slash, and they reduced that by 25%. Yeah, that
Okay,
thing
good.
hurts. Like there's those two packs in the second boss room where that like you can't pull those two packs together specifically because of those Flame Renders. Like you want to pull them together for efficiency's sake, but they hurt so bad. So maybe now on maybe not ultra high keys, but on like mid-level keys it's possible to pull those packs together. Yeah, I agree that stuff hurts.
Yeah.
And just like it's absolutely the type of stuff that they're maybe trying to get a little more parity across the tanks, that some tanks are really 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 good at dealing with magic damage and some aren't. And I think that's okay. I like that, again, that there's different strengths and weaknesses, but at some point you have to adjust it a little bit. And I think these are good changes. I think they're just a little late.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that that's on there because when I was looking for that, because that was one of the things. Like I read through and they're like, we're trying to make tank busters a little bit more manageable, and like that was the one thing that stuck out to me as I didn't tank super high keys. Like I think I tanked a 12 maybe once on my paladin, but I just didn't know how to survive that like at
Yeah,
all. So
it hurts. Yeah.
happy to hear that. I don't
I
know.
am with you that the mobs in Mr. Tierna Scythe not being on there, the anima slash is a little surprising to me. I guess they nerfed the Guardian like um damage buff that they do a little bit, so maybe their feeling there is where they've inadvertently nerfed, because I think there's always a Guardian with those double. What are the actual mobs that do anima slash? Are those the
Defenders,
Guardians?
isn't it? Or
And I
yeah, it's Guardian and the Defender is the one with the persistent buff, right?
Yes, yeah, but it says on the notes here, Mistveil Guardian, Protector of the Mist, damage buff reduced to 2% per stack was 3%. So I thought the Defenders were the ones that have the buff and the Guardians are the ones that hurt. Maybe that's just a typo on their part. Anyway, they're usually together, but the double Guardian pulls in that dungeon are actually really, really tough for a tank. Like as a
Mhm.
bear, I rip Incarn on them and just spam heal myself. But like as a paladin, like you got to have bubble for them. You got to rotate through everything. It's tough.
Yeah. So the other part of Mythic Plus that we should probably talk about is what Blizzard contacted you and I directly about and asked for our input on, and then only took about half of it. So,
Here's the thing: we picked Tuesday to be a recording day because we kind of figured like most of the news comes out on Tuesday, and for whatever reason, the last few weeks, all the news is dropped on Wednesday, making our episode obsolete the second it drops. Because yeah, this news came out last Wednesday. The massive crest changes that they're doing starting today, the 17th, and yeah, big news. Lots to talk about there. Um, Almost entirely good news, I think.
yeah, the one thing that I will say is it feels like it's trying to solve the issue of what we were talking about with like Crest Mountain and alts and everything like that. I'm just not convinced it does the job well enough. And we'll talk about it in a little bit. It is exactly like what we were suggesting, right? Like we had asked just halfway through the season, start giving us a fuck ton more crests, stop punishing us so much for failing keys. So like it is exactly what we asked for. So I'm not trying to say that they need to do more. It's just in retrospect, I almost wonder if it's not quite enough.
Well,
But again,
let's be clear here. It is not a catch-up mechanic. Like what they have done with the change to crest acquisition is a philosophical shift in how crest acquisition works. We'll get into the details of it, but this is going to be a change that's live now, but will also be live the first day of season 2. This is
mhm,
just how crest acquisition is going to work now, and it's better across the board. But it
yeah,
is not a catch-up mechanic. It's going to feel like a catch-up mechanic right now because yesterday I got X number of crests, today I get X plus 4, and so I'm gonna you're everyone playing right now is going to acquire crests at a faster rate than they did yesterday, but it's not really designed to be let's chop down crest mountain a little bit. It just inadvertently does that because they're just increasing the speed of crest acquisition across the board overall. Well, not entirely, but mostly.
yeah. So here, let's just jump into it because
Sure,
that's
let's do
like
it.
the main news thing I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with 1107, and this brings with it the whole ring, the new island, and everything like that. But we're talking about crest right now, so let's just start with the crest changes. So I sound very negative in what I'm saying, where I feel like it might not be enough, and it's not to come off as to say like this isn't a good change. It isn't exactly what we asked for, but the the thing that I keep coming back to, and we had a couple of comments about this, where it's like you come back to the game after not playing for a while and you open up your character panel and you look at the just number of crests you need.
Mhm.
And that number is scary. That
Yeah.
number stops people from playing, despite how fast you can get crests now. But seeing that you need 850 crests, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's the same reason why when they did the level squish, I think it was good for new players, right? Because when a new player started and they're like, I have to get 120 fucking levels.
Yeah.
But
And it doesn't
yeah,
even matter if you get levels at 2 times the rate you did before. It just the psychological feeling of the number is intimidating. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's what I'm trying to say is I'm not sure that that's necessarily solving the crest mountain problem. What it does do though, and what is like the whole intention that Scott and I like had in our minds when we were talking about it, is it does allow you to get crest faster.
Mhm.
You are still punished for failing keys, but you are punished less for failing higher keys. So
Yeah.
if you fail a higher key, let's say you fail, what is it? If you fail a 10, you're still getting as many crests as timing an 8 or something like
Correct.
that.
Correct. Yeah. So let's go through like what actually changed here, in case people listening don't actually know. So the big change is now the amount of crests you get now scales with keystone level. So the break points are still all the same. So at a +8, you will start to accrue gilded crests. At a +4, you will start to accrue ruined crests. And at that breakpoint level, you get the same amount of crests that you got yesterday. The difference is now every key level above that, you get an additional 2 crests. So a +10 now awards 16, a +20 now awards 20. So that is good. That's good. I like that. Good choice. If you're doing harder stuff, you should be rewarded for it. The other big change, as you hinted towards, is the change to how many crests you get if you fail to time a key. It used to be less than half of the amount, right? It was 5 crests, so five, like half of what you used to get would be 6. It's less. It was less than half. Now it is just 4 less. And at any key level you're at, it's 4 less. So at a +8, you now get 8 instead of 5. That's great. But as you said, the interesting thing is at a +10, you're now getting the same amount you would have gotten for timing an 8. So this is great because the thing the system should do is encourage you to push yourself, encourage you to try to do the harder thing, encourage you to take a step up. And the system as it was before didn't do that, because why would I roll the dice on a 10 if I can know I time an 8 and get the crests? Well, now you can roll your dice on the 10. Worst case, you get the same amount of crests you would have gotten on the 8. Best case, you get 4 extra ones. This is great. This is a great change. I love it. I love the idea of on a +12, you getting 20. That's a lot. It's very
Mhm.
good. Even if you fail to time the 12, 16 crests, so you're still getting more than you would have gotten timing an 8 yesterday. That's very, very good. Very good.
The other part of this that I think is very good that we haven't talked about is since you are still getting a larger number of crests, the higher keys you go, it incentivizes people to stick things out more.
Yep.
It
Yep.
incentivizes people to stay in the dungeon. So not only does it incentivize you to continue to push yourself and to try and get more and more and more, but it makes you want to stay. Because if you fail the key, like you're no longer in this situation of, well, I'm only getting 5 crests, so screw it, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
why would I stay in this 13 if I'm only gonna get 5 crests out of it and worse loot? So yeah, I think that this is all in all, I think this is a good change. And I really just wanted to put it out there that I think everything that they did here is great. I think it is going to help out mains going into season 2 more than anybody's even realizing right now. And I think the biggest thing to call out, the absolute number one biggest thing, is if you time a 12 on an alt that you have the crest discount on, you get 2 upgrades from one dungeon.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's another change they did, right? The crest discount breakpoint was 639 in every slot. They brought that back down to 636 in every slot, essentially meaning now that if you can craft gear, you can get the discount, which is good. This is a good thing that they did. I am not quite there yet on my druid, but that's only because I haven't been playing very much over the past few weeks. Like that's definitely achievable. I think I'm like 634. I think I have two trinkets and a belt slot that I need 636 on, and then I'm good to go. So that's very achievable for people. I think it's a great idea. And yeah, what you said is that uh, doing one dungeon and getting double upgrades is awesome. That's awesome. That feels very good. and I think it's a good change. The other things they changed here, and this is a big one now, but I think it's going to be an even bigger change for season 2, is the number of crests you need to build the 636 crafted
Mm-hmm.
item has been dropped by 30. So it was 90 crests. It is now back down to 60 crests, which I believe is what it was in Dragonflight. That's how much it
Yep.
costs to craft something in Dragonflight. So there's this really interesting thing that happened in the season 1 of this game that was, you almost never wanted to craft your item if you had anything else to spend your crests on. Like, I think week 1, you wanted to craft your weapon. That was probably the best. You get all your crests, you craft your weapon. But like, if you have any other things to spend those gilded crests on, it's more efficient to spend it on them than to craft something. And that's weird. That's a weird feeling. I liked the system in Dragonflight. I liked on Spark Week, you craft an item. That's what you do, because it's just the most efficient use of those crests on that week. I liked that system, especially, with the new crafting system with embellishments, yada yada. I just liked that, and I felt weird this season that you really didn't want to craft unless you had to, because 90 crests, that's your whole week's worth for one piece of gear. It felt bad. I think it's a really good change, and now I think in season 2 it's going to be back to every Spark Week you're going to be crafting an item, at least in the first month or so of the expansion or the season.
So I was also just now thinking of this too. On your alt, right? You craft an item, and if you're crest capped on your alt, you can still craft an item, and assuming you have the discount, you still get 3 upgrades, which is almost a full myth track upgrade out of your vault. So
Mm-hmm.
you could get like 2 very decent, almost guaranteed upgrades depending on how much gear you're missing for myth track out of your vault every week, that's huge. That's huge for alts.
Yeah, it is. It's a big change. I'm very happy with all this. I think it's all great. Good news across the board. I have no complaints about any one of these choices. I do want to go back to what you said at the beginning. This is not a catch-up mechanic. This is not it's not, this is what we asked for, I think, across the board as a way to change crest acquisition in Mythic Plus. I do still think there's an argument to be made that this deep into a season, for alts, you just up the number of crests you're getting. It's weird because so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to tell the future real quick. For the next month, this is going to feel awesome. If anyone's not playing right now, let's just fast forward to season 2 and say, for the first month of season 2, this is going to feel awesome, because we all are going to remember what crest acquisition was like in season 1, and it's going to be faster. Now, obviously, gearing is like actual gear growth is not going to be faster, because you're still going to have your cap, right? It doesn't matter if you get 20 crests from a dungeon or 12 crests from a dungeon. Eventually you're going to hit 90, and that's going to be your cap from the week. So it's not actually going to speed up gearing in any meaningful way. Now the changes to crafting will, but that's different. But it's going to feel faster. It's going to feel like you're getting crests more. It's going to feel good. But then it's going to become the new normal. It's going to become, this is the rate at which we are used to getting crests now, because this is the rate at which we get crests. And then we're going to be 3 months into season 2 and thinking of rolling an alt, and we're going to be like, that's a lot of crests still. Yes, it's great that I'm getting them faster, but it's not going to feel faster. It's just going to feel like the rate at which I get crests. And there's going to be, I think season 2, there's going to be some complaints about, we should really have some sort of catch-up mechanic on crest acquisition this late in the season for alts specifically. So that has not been addressed, I think. It has, but it hasn't.
The thing that I think is hard here, and something that they're never going to be able to fix with this system, is that I think anytime that you can take a total number and you can divide it by a number of a known amount that you are going to achieve from doing something, and get the number of times you're going to have to do that thing, that's just going to feel bad, because at some point that number is going to be so large you just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that with the current way that the gearing system's set up, I don't think that there's anything that they can do to really dig themselves out of that hole. And it's just something that the player base as a whole is going to have to change their mentality around and just kind of understand, I think.
So one thing we did call for in several of our various complaints about crest acquisition is the punishment of crests when you fail to time and how it was too harsh. I think one of the things we said specifically is, hey, maybe there shouldn't be a punishment at all. Maybe you should just, like, it already feels bad to fail. Maybe the number of crests you get shouldn't be affected by that. Now they have stayed true to what they believe in, which is that we need people who don't own the key to have an incentive to uh, try to time the key. And so we are still going to punish you on the crest front if you fail to time a key. But at just -4, are you now in your mind, is that an acceptable loss? Is it okay now? Do we need to kind of constantly be harping the idea of, hey, maybe we should get the same amount of crests, or are we now okay with the -4 choice here? What do you think?
I think that because it is a multiple of 2, it's an okay amount to lose. Because I'm going to tell you, there was nothing more annoying than failing a key and then being 1 crest short of your upgrade.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's the thing that matters the most to me. I It is never dawned on me that, like, I need to try my best in this key, because if I don't, I'm going to get less crests. Like, every time I go into a Mythic Plus dungeon, I try my best not only to just, like, if I'm just crest farming, to get it over with faster, but if I'm doing higher content, I want to time the key, whether it's my key or somebody else's key. So this, as a driving factor for me, has absolutely no impact at all. And it's just an annoyance for when I fail. Like, that's all it is for me.
Yeah.
So to me, no, this change doesn't change a single fucking thing for me.
Yeah, I think it is interesting that they kind of double down on that thing we talked about, which is like, why do we have a reduction in crests for failing to time anyway? And it's that thing they say here in the post. It's important for all members of a Mythic Plus group to have a shared interest in finishing a dungeon within the timer rather than just the key holder, which is, I mean, this is what we talked about this months ago, but this is what they said. This was the reason. And it makes sense if you believe, if you buy into the argument that with no incentive like that, no one else is going to care. I mean, like, they already kind of don't. Like, people already are fine just leaving a key, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't. I think you're right. I don't think anyone enters the Mythic Plus system saying, like, you know, I don't really care if I time this one. I don't really. I'm not really committed to the timer on this timed dungeon experience because it's
Or
not
my
my
time
keys.
of being in here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I am okay with it. I don't buy their argument, but I understand their argument, and I think I agree with them that this previous system was, like, overly punitive is the language they used, and I completely agree. This feels a little bit more fair. And I agree with you. It creates a situation where there's never going to be, I'm trying to do, like, the math here. Is there ever going to be a situation where, like, I mean, I guess there is, you're never going to be, like, within a couple of getting an upgrade. Like, if you would have timed it, there's going to be moments where, because you didn't time it, you will not be able to get the upgrade that you would have gotten had you timed it. That is still going to happen, but it's going to happen much less often, and it's not going to be that very annoying within 1. It will never be the very annoying within 1.
Yeah, I mean, at the worst case, it'll be within 2, right?
Yeah,
But the other thing is it doesn't. And this is just me being weird, so I'm just gonna acknowledge that right now. But, like, it it pissed me off so much that if I don't time a key, I have to then go not time another key to get back to an even number of crests in my character's, like, thing, or I have to cap. Like, that's the only solution. And, like,
or
I
you
don't know
could just
why,
not be a
but
psycho and
that
just let
it
it go.
just drives me so absolutely up the wall.
I just love the idea of you just walking into a key and being like, it's an odd number, I'm gonna nuke the shit out of this one.
Well, no, because my solution was always just cap.
Sure.
So,
Well, the cap's gone now. You can't do it. So the only
yeah,
way
I
to
know.
get
So
back
now
to,
I'm screwed.
yeah. Uh,
Uh,
this is all very good stuff. This is very good stuff. A weird thing happened though with me is the second this was announced, I was like, well, what's the point of playing for the rest of this week? I did end up playing a little bit, and the reason I did is because I realized that like I'm in this journey with my Mistweaver and really, really enjoying it, but I'm very close to the Gilded Crest discount on my Druid. Like I'm very close, and so it's like I should just get there. Like I'm about to start Gilded Crests on the Mistweaver. I'm about to start that process, and it's like it doesn't make sense to do that. I should just get there on my Druid, just cross the finish line there, and then I can go back. So I had to just like halt all progress on my monk, which didn't feel great, but yeah, whatever. You know, it's just they gotta input this some. It was gonna happen at some point. Um, it's a good change.
So all of that is like awesome. And I think the Mythic Plus nerfs were warranted. I don't know that we really need to go into that more, but I
No,
do think that those are warranted. I don't think they would happen if they weren't.
I
Um,
still have a problem with the cadence and the timing of some of this stuff.
I
Like
agree.
I it's not. I just refuse to believe that like 2 months ago someone was like, "Hey, it seems like these magic tank busters are a little bit hurting too much," and then someone else said, "Well, hold on, we need a little bit more data. Let it roll for another 2 months, and then we'll decide." Like, it just, I don't quite understand how they make the determination to act when they act with some of this stuff. Like with stuff like the crests, it's like, okay, they what they had was a philosophical shift in how they thought about the system, and so that happens over. I understand that's not going to happen at the beginning of the season. Sometimes that happens as you're just looking out at the landscape of the game and saying like, okay, I think we now understand we need to change something. But like, I just feel like everyone was looking at tank damage in these tank busters week 2 of the season and was like, something needs to be done about this. And then
Yeah.
just nothing was done. And it's just like, it feels weird to me. Like I understand the idea that when the season first starts, there's going to be a lot of changes early on as they're trying to tinker and fix stuff, and then the cadence of changes is going to slow down as the season goes on, but it just feels like we get so little communication on what they're thinking. Are they like even just a post that's like, hey, we're looking into the tank damage thing, like we're looking into these tank busters, we haven't made any decision, we don't want to put anything down in writing yet because we don't know which way we're going to go, but hey, we're looking into it. Whereas this is just like, this post just came out, I think it was like Monday. Like this came out like the night before the patch. It's like, oh, by the way, we're gonna do this, and that's just like, okay, that's great, but like for a lot of tanks, it's too little, too late.
Yeah. And so I agree with you at a lot of the time on this, but I do think back to um, at the very beginning of the season when they announced things that were going to be changing, but it was like months in advance, essentially.
Mm.
And we were kind of clowning them for telling us so far in advance. So like I think it's a kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I do wish that they were a little bit more communicative, and I think that if they did it more regularly, they wouldn't get clowned about it so much. But the fact that it's so sparse, and then they do this one time, they tell us about all of these class changes that are going to be happening, and like essentially telling us about nerfs, but not actually implementing the nerfs for like a month, that means that there are now people who are going to be playing a class that they know in a month is going to be significantly weaker than they are.
Yeah.
And so I think that those kind of changes, they can't be doing this like preemptive telling us about it stuff. But for things like dungeons, I think that just like you were saying, like, hey, we're looking into it is good. But if they said, hey, we know X is a very specific problem, but we're not doing anything about it for a month, then I think we'd be pissed off.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I think maybe what I'm asking for here is not even like more preemptive communication, but just like maybe just a little bit more um consistency in how they approach balance, because
Hmm.
it just seems like it's all over the place sometimes. It's just like for the cadence seems to be for the first month, it's every week there's going to be balance and tuning changes, and then from there it's just a wild fucking west, and you just never know if you're going to wake up the next morning and it's yep, we're fixing something or we're nerfing something or we're buffing something, and it just like seems like, honestly, there's a part of me like I don't think this was good. Like there's a history of the time of this game where if shit was broken, if a class was broken or a dungeon was unfair, they just weren't going to touch it until the next major content patch, right? Like there was a history in this game that's the way they operated. It's like, well, this is broken. We know it's going to be broken. It'll be fixed eventually, but we as players know it's not going to be touched until
Hmm.
point two or whatever. And there's part of me that's like, well, at least in that situation, you knew. Like
Yeah.
everyone knew my class isn't going to be nerfed or buffed. This dungeon is just going to suck throughout. Like, I'm not saying that was like a better state, but like you at least had some level of assurance on what the state of the game was going to be day to day, week to week. Whereas now you just never know. And it's kind of, it's not, it's just, it's kind of jarring sometimes. And that like, it, like they they nerf a meta class or something, and it's like you're playing a non-meta class, you switch the meta class, and then the meta class gets hit with just a random nerf on a Wednesday, and you didn't know or didn't expect it. It's like, okay, well, is that the meta anymore? Like, am I wasting my time being like, I don't know. It's just it's weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the other part about this is something that you didn't even touch on, and it's that nothing is normalized. So even when we do get bug fixes, half the time some of those go in as hot fixes that happened before they even make the announcement.
Mm-hmm.
Half the time they come in with a reset. And you never know what's going to happen until it's in a post. And I just feel like I don't know. I don't want them to stop hot fixing things. Honestly, maybe I do because the quality's been pretty fucking shit lately and they do more testing if it actually came out on a release.
Hey,
But
I will say we're about to talk about 1107. I have not heard or seen any terrible bugs so far. So,
there's not enough people playing to break the game, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so that's the other part of it. Like I agree with you. I wish that there was some normalcy. I wish that we knew, you know, okay, when dungeons first come out, for the first month, every week we're going to do a pass on dungeons until we feel like we get them into a decent spot, and then we'll do monthly passes. Like I wish that we at least had like that level of communication, and then we would know because in a blue post once a month during an update, they could just be like, okay, we looked at dungeons, no changes need to happen this month, or we looked at dungeons and XYZ need to change, and like sure that would bring backlash if they didn't nerf something or they did nerf something and people felt like they did or didn't need to do that. But also, like, you're going to have backlash on anything that you post about because that's just the that's the situation of being on the internet. Like some people
yeah.
are going to agree with you and some people are not going to agree with you. So
Hmm.
I feel like the clarity is better than trying to protect yourself from making the wrong choice or saying the
Yeah.
wrong thing.
I agree. I think this is probably just a developer thing, though. They just want to hold as much to the chest as they possibly can until it's definitive. But yeah, I agree.
So, talking about 1107, because all of this is all 1107, right? So the crests, the Mythic Plus nerfs, all of that was 1107.
Hmm.
We have the ring to talk about too, because so I guess let's talk about the zone first.
Sure.
Maybe I don't
It's
know.
all kind
I
of the same. Um,
I haven't interacted with it, and I don't know that I'm going to. I know Scott has done a little bit. I have watched Max play through it a little bit, and it's just more or less 100% exactly what I was expecting. It's
yeah.
a new kind of somewhat catch up zone that furthers the story, gets us in position to be in the new raid and everything else. But it's just not anything that interests me, and my characters are so far past the point of this zone actually helping them that like that doesn't interest me either. So I don't know that I'm going to be interacting with this. So I'm really going to be riding Scott's coattails on the little bit he has actually played it today.
Yeah. So, I mean, I played just a little bit, but like I did most of it, which is, I guess, the nicest thing I can say about it is I think it was about 45 minutes before our scheduled recording time. I was able to hop into the game and I tried to get as far into the new stuff as I possibly could. I did all of the weekly quests except for maybe one. I got the ring. I got the 4 gems that are available for the ring right now. We'll talk about that in a sec. And I got my first upgrade to the ring, by the way, which I didn't know that. I thought it was going to be the second week you get to upgrade its item level, but no, the thing was on. I did a quest and she gave me a thing, and the ring's 642 now. Um, so I did all that in like 45 minutes. It was very quick. It's pretty easy. It's yeah. I mean, it's more of the same. Like there's nothing different here. Like the big I think thing they were talking about with this is that you have these 3 different factions there. You can contribute resources to one of the 3 factions. When the resource bar fills up, the faction goes out to a certain location. They dig in the spot, which is just basically like a rare timer. When rare spawn, sometimes they have like the 2-minute timer where they won't be active. It's that. There's a slow countdown timer. The cave opens up. You go into the cave. There's a monster in there. You kill the monster. You get stuff. The end. And then you do enough activities in this island. You unlock the special operation, which is you kind of transfer to a new instance of the zone that's like mid-storm, and there's other quests and stuff that you do in there, and that's pretty much it. I don't quite know how the catch-up gear works because I was getting items all over the place. Like I got some veteran track stuff. I think I got like 1 or 2 I think I got 1 champion track item, but I can't remember if that was from a chest that I got or from killing a boss or whatever. But yeah, I mean, if you're doing like a Mythic Plus or Raider, like none of this gear is going to be for you. But it's very quick. There is no flying, but it is a very small island, and you do have like one of the quests has you go to these different like windmills or like radio station things around, and they give you goblin like rocket boots for it. So you just kind of rocket booting around. It's fine. It's more of exactly what you would expect a zone in World of Warcraft to be in 2024. Like it's just that. There's events, there's rares, there's quests, there's weeklies, and that's pretty much it.
So the way that I see this is the exact same way that I saw the Ring Island, the Drakthir starting zone island in Dragonflight, where it's a zone I'll probably go do the story quest in, and then I'll never come back.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I will say the Zeskara, I think it was called Vault in that zone in Dragonflight, was like a new gameplay mechanic. Like it was like kind of puzzles, explore type stuff that I found interesting and fun for longer than I found just the regular open world stuff in that zone. I haven't found anything like that in Siren Isle so far.
Yeah.
There's nothing that, and I don't mean like it in like a new vault system, but just a different thing that's new and fresh. I haven't found it. Like the giving resources to one of the 3 factions is basically identical to the giving resources to the seed in the Emerald Dream. It's like the same interface. It's the same thing essentially. So there's nothing new here. But if you like that kind of stuff, if you like that gameplay loop, it's more for you to do. So hooray.
Yeah, so I guess that brings us to the ring. And the biggest thing that I've seen with this and that I think is weird is when they first announced the ring, obviously I'm a big like bah humbug about it not having secondary stats and everything like that. They solved that with the gems, so cool, hooray, whatever. But when they first announced it, I was under the impression we were going to be able to target the very specific gems that we wanted. And I don't know if you can or cannot do that with the 4 that are currently out, if you can target the ones that you want. But there's only 4, and there's supposed to be 8, and nobody knows how to get the other 4, right?
There's 10.
Or 10.
Yeah.
But like, if the targeting doesn't mean anything if you can't get all of them,
So,
like
it's really weird because I don't know if they're trying to do like a runes in Season of Discovery system here where they're like hidden somewhere out there and we just haven't discovered them yet, or if it's literally time gated and just like, hey, this week you're going to unlock these 4, next week you're going to unlock these 3, whatever. I have no idea. So like, so the four that we have, the acquisition is pretty simple. I have all four. Wasn't like trying to get them, just like through the course of like doing the weeklies and dailies and events in the zone, you will just get them. I don't have a guide right now that tells me which of the four are good, which is terrifying. I don't know what to do. What do I do? What do I do with my hands?
Secondaries.
Sure.
Always
So
secondaries.
the four that are available right now are the one that grants you a bunch of your highest secondary stat is the one that you get just automatically from doing like the tutorial quest to unlock the ring. Then there are two of those, contribute resources to unlock the cave thing. Two of those, if you do them, will grant you two other ones. One is just spells and abilities have a chance of doing damage to the enemy. The other is spells and abilities have a chance to heal your allies. And then the fourth one is the one you get for like the weekly like special operations quest. And that is your spells and abilities have a low chance of triggering the citrine effects of your allies. So I assume if you're like a damage dealer, you want secondaries, you want the damaging one, and you want that trigger your friends' gems as well. And if you're a healer, swap the damage to healing one out. But I don't actually know. It's interesting. It's weird because I thought the ring in Dragonflight, the acquisition, how you got like the stones for the ring, and how you had to work with someone through the crafting system to level up the stones. I thought that was like too many steps and annoying. Like I thought that was more of a pain in the ass than it was worth. And this is, I guess, technically easier, depending on how the hell we get these other six stones, because the ring itself is the thing that levels up in eye level. In the Dragonflight ring, that you level up the stones, and then putting the stones in the ring increases the item level of the ring. This is not how it works. The stones themselves don't have an item level. There's no there's no variance in them. They're just the stones. You get the stone, you put it in the thing. That's it. Um, and now its power, like the actual effects of them, will go up and down based on what eye level the ring is. But it's a simplified version of it. But it's a simplified version of it that like it's weird that nobody knows where to get these other things from.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out, and maybe I'll be just wrong whenever we come back and talk about it. But yeah, I just hope there is one thing that you told me, and I think that this is awesome for alts, and maybe this is what they meant about it being targeted. But once you unlock the gem, then you can buy that gem, and it's a warbound gem.
Yeah. So
So
this was another thing they did the night before the patch is they switched the gems to be warbound until equipped, which I was like, okay, I guess that's fine depending on when you get where you get the gem. And then when I logged in today, there's a vendor that any gem that you've discovered, she will sell it for a very measly amount of the currency that you get in this zone. It's like 50, and you get a lot of it. I have 1,000, like 2,000 already. So like, this process for getting an alt the ring and getting the gems that you want in the ring for the alt is going to be very quick, very simple, harmless, easy. And that's good. That's a good thing. Now, I don't know for the alt how you level the ring up. If the alt, so the way you get the ring's item level to increase is by doing a quest. You do the quest, the person gives you an item, you right click the item, your item level of your ring goes up by essentially the one upgrade amount via the crest system, essentially. For alts, I'm assuming there's going to be a catch up mechanic that you can get 2 of those a week if you missed the week before, or
yeah.
3 of them, etc. But like, it's you do it by like just doing quests in the area. So like, am I going to need to run my alt through and do a bunch of world quests and repeatable quests in this place just to get my ring up to 3 or 650 whatever? Probably. That I'm not excited about, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't actually know how it works.
Yeah, and so I think once this gets more fleshed out, like we'll really know. Um, but I mean, it's hard not to just compare it directly to the Dragonflight ring and the Dragonflight zone. Like, I really do feel like that's the equivalent of what they were trying to go for here. It's the same, like beginning 0.07 patch at which it came out. I don't think there's a raid associated with the zone. So like all of this is just essentially going to be contained to its own little area. And when 11.1 comes out, will likely never, ever, ever come back here unless for a very specific reason you need to upgrade your ring or something like that. It's not going to be like the Emerald Dream where you go back because the raid's there and there's other things to do. It's going to be a lot like the Drakthir starting area island
Yeah.
was.
I guess the one thing we forgot to talk about is the change to the item level of the ring, though.
Sure.
Because up until a couple days before the patch, the ring started at 619, and then you could level it up all the way to 638 or 639, which is the max item level. And then, like, just yesterday or the day before, they announced no, the ring's going to start at 639, and then over the next 6 weeks, you'll be able to level it all the way up to 658. Which is good because the thing that they announced when they announced the ring is like, we want this to be the best in slot ring for everyone in season one. That's what we want. This is supposed to be a little power bump for everyone late in the season. Also a catch up mechanic. It's supposed to be a lot of things. We want it to be that definitively. But the other thing they said is we also want this to be pretty useful for people deep into season two. And you're looking at a 639 ring with what the things have on it, and you're like, nobody's going to use this in season two. But
Yeah.
now suddenly it's 658. That is, I believe, equivalent to what heroic track gear will be in season two. So
Yeah.
you will not replace this thing in season two until you've got a maxed heroic track item or maybe even a myth track item. Now we'll see how that actually plays out, right? That's what they've said the design goal is, that we don't want you subbing this ring out until you're getting myth track stuff in season two. That's going to be a tough mark to hit. Obviously, every class will benefit from the ring differently. Like some it will be really good for, I'm sure. Some it won't. I'm sure they're going to nerf or buff individual gems over the course of the next couple weeks. But I am very happy that, like, if you're someone that plays this game and is playing this game consistently, now you get to equip this thing day one, which it would have been really
Mhm.
stupid if you're 630 something and this thing's 619 and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll see you in 5 weeks, new content, because I've got to level this thing all the way up. So good change.
Yeah. So I think it's good. I'm more worried about the season two implications of this than I am the current implications. I think them doing this for the current implications, it's amazing. Um, yeah, my fear is just season two. Like either we're going to be in the situation where this ring is going to be so good for its item level that it's going to be better than items that are higher item level, which never feels good,
Mm-hmm.
or it's going to get replaced immediately, which once you get something that's higher item level, and I think that's what they're going for. And if that's the case, awesome. But there's another scenario where this ring is only good now because of how much like more stat budget you're going to be getting over rings that you can get currently.
Yeah.
But when we're in the situation of like hero track items are giving about the same stat budget, this thing could also fall short too. So I'm more worried about the season two implications and what's going to happen there. I don't think it's something that's going to be a cause for concern. I think the only way that this is going to be bad or annoying is if I said like the first thing that I was saying comes true, where this is so over budgeted for its item level that it's better than wearing like a myth track item. But they've at least came out to say very explicitly that that is not their goal.
Yeah.
So I have high hopes that this will land correctly.
I hope so. I mean, I think their track record on this is mixed at best. Their ability to thread this needle.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I mean, I like it as a design philosophy goal. Um, I wonder if there's anyone that's like quit the game now that is going to be annoyed when they come back in season two and learn that, oh, sorry, you're going to have to go back and farm this ring and get it to max level and do all that stuff. Which hopefully, once all is said and done, won't take actually that long. But I'm just like, if it's season two, you're in the game in season two, you don't want to be doing 1107 shit. You want to be doing the 11.1 stuff. So any amount of time that you have to spend doing that, if you've quit the game at this point, because the ring is going to be so good, I think will be frustrating to people. But
There better be catch up for it.
yeah,
That or award us level ups for the ring for doing the new content as well.
yeah,
Like
I agree.
one of those two things is going to have to happen, I think.
Completely. Yep.
Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else on 1107 that's really like super notable.
I mean,
Um,
there's prequel to the
the Kirin
Goblin
Tor stuff too.
stuff. Yeah, there's the Kirin Tor quest that's not available right now. So oops. They said it was going to be, and then it wasn't. And then there's the prequel, the prelude to the 11.1 story is like a series of quests. I have not done them yet. It's just a series of quests that you deal with, like the troll druid looking race that you meet at the end of the campaign. Something to do with them and goblins, obviously. But that's
uh,
very minor, very quick. It's not a big part of the content at all.
so they teased this Kirin Tor questline too, and everybody was all excited for it, and was under the assumption that this was going to be out on launch. But then reset happened, and essentially you find Khadgar, and he's in a magical wheelchair with a bar over his head that just says 21 days, which means that you will not be able to do this Kirin Tor quest line until January the 7th, I believe. And that means that this didn't actually launch with the patch, to be completely honest, and that it's just a waiting game until the 7th for us to be able to interact with that quest line. So,
It's really funny because like you were saying like everyone thought that we would get to do this, and I was gonna be really clever and be like, oh, I wonder why they thought they were gonna be to do this, and then pull up the card that has the Siren Isles update on it that says clearly Kirin Tor quest line, but it actually doesn't say
yeah,
that.
I think if I had to guess, and I haven't done any definitive research on this, but if I had to guess, it was available in BTR on launch, and so everybody just assumed that that would be the case, and that wasn't really their plan.
Okay, but like, why? Like, why?
I don't know.
Besides artificial time gating to keep people subbed, because it's like, oh, I can't let my sub expire at the end of this month because I have to find out what happens to the Kirin Tor. Like, really? Just fucking release the quest now. What are we
Yeah,
doing?
I don't know. Apparently, Khadgar needs another 21 days to recover because the last 3 months haven't been enough. So he's got to
Apparently,
have a
yeah.
little bit more time. But so Scott, 1107 stuff aside, there is a couple of other things that I want to talk about. One of them is actually a news item. Now that I've remembered the actual thing that I wanted to bring up in the news section that I didn't add, it wasn't actually the numbers that Blizzard released, which if you haven't looked on Wowhead, you should go check out the post, the yearly recap of game data that Blizzard released. There's a ton of fun numbers there. We can talk about it here in just a second. But the thing is that I wanted to talk about is today with reset for North America and tomorrow with reset for EU, for SOD players, they added in a vendor at level 1 that you can buy every single rune in the game from, which I thought was an interesting way to handle people potentially making new characters or starting SOD super late.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not going to do it, but this is the closest thing that got me to consider jumping into SOD, because like that is one thing that I just like the rune acquisition process. Like, I understand the design goal for it. I thought it was a lofty goal, and it was fun for me like the first couple of days of like, where do I get my runes from? This is fun. But like ultimately I just didn't find that very compelling gameplay. And the idea that you could just have them all by buying them now is great sounding to me. And yeah, as you said, the problem of alts in Season of Discovery is that you don't have them because it's such a pain in the ass to get all the runes.
Mm-hmm.
So people just weren't doing that. And as we've said, alts are a big part of World of Warcraft now. So this is a good change. It's a good change. They also announced that a new dungeon raid is coming in Phase 7. They showed a
Yeah.
Scarlet Crusade building.
That unironically might be enough to at least get me interested in watching somebody do it, because
Yeah.
the Scarlet Crusade shit is like some of my favorite stuff in all of, not all of World of Warcraft, but at least with classic WoW, it was some of my favorite like content to go through. So I'd be interested to see what they do there. But yeah, we were talking about right before this recording that there was something that I wanted to add, and glad I remembered it because
Mhm.
I thought that that was super interesting.
Yeah. Good for them. Good for those people. Happy for them.
The numbers though, Scott, I don't know if any of this really matters to a lot of the people, but I think the thing that interested me the most in this post. So it's a very corporate, like flashy, here's all of the amazing things that we did with huge numbers, and like it's meant to get investors and everybody hyped up. Um but there was 8.34 billion total hours played across all platforms and all games under the Blizzard umbrella. Which, when I first read this, I was like 8.34 billion World of Warcraft hours played. And then I continued to read through and I saw, okay, well, there's really only one World of Warcraft stat on here. And so I went back up and I reread it. And even though it's all of their portfolio, that's still an amazing number. Like that's huge. They have a stat here where it's like that's 952,000 years and shit like that. But the the only World of Warcraft stat on here, and kind of the reason I wanted to talk about this is all, Nerubians and spiders killed, and that's it. And then everything else like Warcraft Rumble, they have a Hearthstone one. They have two for Diablo, one for Immortal, one for D4, and then they have one for StarCraft. So they essentially did one for all of their like major flagship games. I
Yeah.
just think the one that they did for WoW is an interesting one.
Spiders, man. It was the spider season. That's a lot of
But
spiders dead.
so yeah, if you haven't
I
checked it out and you're interested in numbers, go give it a look.
I did
Like I
like
said,
the 378 million total messages sent. How many of those were people being assholes, do you think? What percentage of
they should
I'm going to say
say that.
about 200 million.
If you spent 5 seconds reading each message, it would take you 60 years of nonstop reading to finish 378 million messages.
And you would be insane, I think. You would just be an
Yeah,
insane
especially
person.
knowing the the population that plays this game and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
nice they can be to each other
Mhm.
sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess should we talk about the leak, the massive, amazing leak that happened?
I mean, we can. Yeah, sure.
I so I don't really want to talk about the survey that got released. What I do want to talk about and what I think is interesting is I want to talk about what do you think or want or think needs to be filled for the new class. So I saw this
So
discussion.
this is assuming, right? You are running with the assumption that there will be a new class in one of these next two expansions.
Well, surely, right? Like they always do like new class, new race, new class, new race, except for Drakthir, which gave us both a class and a race, and then we had nothing this expansion. So surely eventually there will be a new class. So yeah, I kind of want to. Well, I guess we got Earth in this expansion, but do we count an allied race, an actual race?
I don't know.
Um,
That's kind of
uh,
racist, I think. But
but yeah. So what I want to do here, and the reason I want to bring it up is because the second somebody posted this video in our Discord, it started this whole discussion on like, what do you think the next class either needs to have or should have, or what fantasies aren't filled, or things like that. So I wanted to take like a couple minutes and actually talk about it, the two of us,
sure.
and kind of see where we were at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the very first thing that came up and something that you agreed with is that the new whatever next class is, whenever the next class is, whether it's in Midnight or the Last Titan or after that, um, has to have a tank spec.
Yes.
Is there a reason that it has to have a tank spec specifically when every other new class we had added to the game has had a tank spec besides Evoker?
Yeah, because they need people to play tanks more. Like that is why you make like everyone has had a tank spec except for Evoker, and then they've added also added healers less frequently, but you need people to try to play these roles. If you're going to make a new class, everyone's going to want to switch to the new class, and if the new class is only DPS, it's just going to have a lot of DPS, and we're already at a tank shortage. Every class from now on should be frankly, I think they should have a tank spec, a DPS spec, and a healer spec. Every new class, I think they should. We
So
need people to play these specs.
so are you saying that this new class also needs to be a melee class then?
I mean, I guess so. Like, I don't know how. Like, no one has developed the technology to make a tank that is not in melee. So, if someone can do that, great. I don't
At
think
least
so.
the
I mean,
tank spec needs to be melee.
yeah, I think you could make the DPS spec be a range spec and still have a tank mate. Like, I still think like they could have just made the third evoker spec a tank. Like, they
Yeah.
could have just done that. And they decided to go a different way. Like, we could have a conversation on whether evoker augmentation evoker like would have just been better as a tank or not. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know enough about how that class works and the detail of it, but they could have done it and perhaps should have done it.
Hmm.
But here we are. Yeah, I just think it has to. It has to be a tank. Like, I think it should maybe also be a healer, but has to be a tank.
Yeah, I think the other big thing is, and something that we've seen in both Demon Hunter and Evoker when it got released, is I think that we have to have three specs on release for whatever new class gets released. Like we have we have had Demon Hunter who still has two specs and only has two specs, and I don't think is ever going to get a third spec. And then we had Evoker release with only two specs.
Yeah.
Um, and then they got a third. And then obviously we have Druid who has four, which is also abnormal. But I think that the norm is three. We should have three on any new thing that gets released.
I think they should just reduce Druid to 3 too. I mean, no one plays Feral. Just cut that out.
Don't
Um,
let people hear you say that.
I mean,
There's going to be some angry cats.
so I actually don't. I think all four specs are good and important, but I do think that having to fit four specs in a class tree is one of the ongoing struggles of why the Druid class tree just remains hot garbage because they're trying to fit four different specs in it at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think they should find a way to solve that problem without eliminating one of the three specs. But I agree with that. So I guess to step back here, like, I agree with you generally that I think there's going to be a new class at some point because new classes are shiny things that you can put on the box as an expansion feature and they move units. That's what they do because everyone wants to try the new class. It's what can bring people that have quit back to the game. It's just a thing that they need to do. The question I have is how the fuck can this game handle more than it already has, right? We have what, 13 classes, we have 39 somewhere around there specs that all have to be balanced against each other. It's an incredible amount of work to balance stuff, and you're adding at minimum two more specs. I agree with you. You should probably have three. Like, it just seems like this is just going to get exponentially harder every time they do this. I think they have to do it, but it's just going to be crazy. This is, by the way, why I just don't ever think they're going to do we're not going to do a new class. We're just going to add specs to existing classes. And I was like, oh, so you're just going to make everything 20 times worse. Okay. Um,
So,
yeah,
the other thing that we didn't talk about just now is there's also the number of specs in hero talents.
that's true. You every time you introduce a new class. So one new class used to just be one new class. That's one new class, three different talent trees. And then now three different hero trees as well.
Yep. And that's supposed to be an evergreen system that isn't
Yep.
going away.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a lot. And it's the reason, so like, okay, we have to have this conversation because a lot of people bring it up when they talk about classes in WoW. A lot of people bring up balance in WoW as like a negative thing, and they point to Final Fantasy 14 very specifically on how to do balance correctly. And while Final Fantasy 14 does balance very well, they have had issues, and I think are currently having an issue with Pictomancer. But Final Fantasy 14 has very, 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 very basic standard gearing and doesn't have talents. And on top of that, doesn't have fucking hero talent. Like, we have two talent systems and they have none
Mm-hmm.
on Final Fantasy 14. So you can't make the argument of just balance it forehead because there is actually no way that they can have balance between doing quick math, getting close to 80 different potential outcomes, maybe even more.
Yeah.
Like it's just not going to happen. It's not.
And look, I like this more complex system better than I like the Final Fantasy system. There's more customization, there's more complexity. I like it. And they're doing, I think, pretty good job of balancing it. They're not perfect. They're doing a pretty good job. But yeah, I mean this adds the added complexity to all of it. And it's not even just we have to make new talent trees, we have to make new hero specs, we have to find a way to balance them against each other. Then we have things like trinkets that are complicated things to balance, but now you have
Tier
to
sets.
balance them against a new yeah, there you go. Tier sets as well. It's just a whole shitload of work. At some point I would not be surprised if they were just like, look, we have to find a way to sell units that aren't adding new classes or specs to this game because Jesus.
Well, to bring us back a little bit, I wanted to float my idea because it wasn't one that got brought up until late in our discussion.
Sure.
Actually, just a couple hours ago. So everybody was saying that, at least in our Discord, when this got brought up, that they would like to. I'm trying to pull it up to make sure I am accurate here. They would like to see something that fits a new fantasy, but it didn't really seem like there was anything essentially missing that we didn't have yet.
Yeah, I mean,
And
like, what are the big like Warcraft lore things that we don't have? I mean, like, the Necromancer was, I think, one brought up on the survey, but like, how do you differentiate Necromancer from the already existing? Like,
Unholy DK.
you have Unholy DK. Like, Death Knights essentially serve as Necromancers in current World of Warcraft, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you would need to differentiate it in some way. I mean, I can't think of anything else. Like, I think that things start to get really thin. Like, you get like wardens, I guess.
Bard is the one I'm thinking of,
But
and
is
that isn't Warcraft. That's
yeah,
just
yeah,
fantasy.
yeah, right.
So, but I think that is, and you're gonna hate me for this, but we've already cemented the fact that we have a fucking support class in the game, and Bard could fill another support role,
Yeah, it could.
and it
How
would
is a
give.
bard gonna tank?
Uh,
Explain to me the tank bard.
well, I wasn't on the everything needs to have a tank
But everything needs to have
bandwagon.
a tank.
I disagree. I think as long as it can have a heal or tank spec, it's enough. Personally.
No, look at there's no tanks. There's 0 tanks that exist right now, and it's because of
To be
Okra
fair,
without a
it's
tank.
fucking hard to find healers too, so
It
we're
is.
just
Yeah.
ignoring that fact. But yeah, Bard is the one that immediately stuck out to me as something we don't have in a fantasy game. But no, I mean, like you said, it's not really something that is Warcraft-esque. I think one thing that we are missing is some sort of like voodoo kind of class. Like we have shamans, but
Mm-hmm.
shamans are more elemental and not as much so the like the voodoo kind of aspect of some of the troll factions.
Sure.
So maybe something like that, like a voodoo hexer or something like that, would be something that's missing that's from the lore. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Warcraft lore specific, I really feel like we have a lot of the bases covered.
Mm-hmm.
Tinker, I guess, like a gnomish tinker kind of thing. But again, that's like I had to clarify and say gnomish tinker, like gnomish or goblin. And if you look at Demon Hunter, like having only 2 races to
Can you
play on Demon
imagine?
Hunter kind of sucks.
Can you imagine they introduce a new class to World of Warcraft and then say you have to play a gnome if you want to play the new class? Can you imagine how many people would lose their fucking minds?
Well, they could do that now, right? You don't even have to have goblin. You can just make it gnome only because factions don't fucking mean anything
Yeah, I
now.
mean, it would be gnome goblin if they did that. Like, it would be, but like, just if you play alliance, it's like, sorry, you have to be a gnome now. Like, the thing about the demon hunter is yes, I don't like that restriction. Like we've talked about before, I think all classes should be all races, but like at least the ones they picked for Demon Hunter were like unquestionably the most popular races in the game. Like the majority, if you look at like just flat out numbers, Blood Elf and Night Elf, as like more people play those than anything else. So it wasn't as big of an ask of people. It's like, oh, make a Night Elf? Oh, sure, twist my arm. But no, make a gnome.
Yeah. I think it'd be hilarious.
I would love it. I would love it to death, but it's never gonna happen.
But yeah, I mean, so that was just my 2 cents. We don't have to go too super deep on this. I don't. Is there anything else like new class or thought that you have around this that you want to throw out there, and maybe it'll stick on the wall?
No, I mean, part of me just wants to be like the cynical, curmudgeon old man that just says, we don't need this, actually. Like, just make the game better. Just continue to work on balancing the game, making the classes feel exciting and fresh through other means. We don't have to liven up the freshness by introducing a new shiny class to try out. But I know that they have to do it, right? And they'll find a way to do it. I don't think it's going to be in Midnight. I think the big on the box expansion feature for Midnight is going to be player housing. I
Yep.
don't think we're going to see anything else new there. I think it's going to be 8 dungeons, raid, like everything we know an expansion to be, and also player housing. But
Yeah.
maybe a Last Titan or whatever the name of it is when we'll see a new class. And so you wonder, like, if it's going to fit thematically with that expansion, if it would be some sort of like Titan imbued, Titan empowered class thing to fit with that lore. I have no idea.
You just get to play as a Magni.
What if you just get to be a Titan? Like it's like Titan.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
all of the other classes just get rolled into one class. It's just called Titan, and you can
Yeah.
pick abilities from all of them.
Yeah. It's
Just
like that.
ruining the game as we know it.
It's like that damn. Do you get the advertisement on you?
Ascension?
Yeah, I see the
Yeah, I've played
Ascension WoW
Ascension.
ad all the time.
Yeah, I've played Ascension. It's fun.
You're gonna go to jail. It's illegal.
But all right, well, new class wise, I think that's pretty much all I had. Like I said, I just wanted to have a quick little fun
Yeah,
discussion about
it's
it.
always fun to talk about it. I wish I had like a clear crystal idea of what I would want it to be, but I don't. Uh, Whatever
So
should be, it you have to be a gnome. Is
the last thing here that I have on our script is what are we currently up to? And we've given a little bit of a hint, or at least Scott has, on what he's been doing recently. But I think there's more to it than that. Uh, and what I've been up to. So a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I don't remember what it was. We talked about what we were doing, so might as well give another update on kind of what we're doing. And as of yesterday, I have started playing the WoW Killer itself, hardcore World of Warcraft classic. Scott,
it's so funny because like I knew this was gonna happen eventually. Like I knew you were gonna eventually start playing it. It was just a matter of time, and so I'm. This is the least surprising news of all time to me.
yeah, so I'm still going really hard on Path of Exile 2 since that's released. Which great game, by the way. If you enjoy Path of Exile, it's very fun. Um, and I have still been playing RuneScape. But yeah, I started a rogue in Hardcore Classic yesterday. We'll see how far I get.
Rogue.
I'm not too married to the idea of playing the game. But I've got some friends who have been playing and they've got up to level 40 now. So figured might as well give it a try. It seems like it's sticking around for a little bit, at least in my friend group. So
Why'd you pick a rogue?
I've never played a rogue in Classic WoW. Every time I play Classic WoW, I play a hunter just because it's the most comfortable to me. So I figured if I'm gonna try something new, might as well jump myself into the deep end in hardcore and
Yeah.
try something I've never actually played.
Naturally, the one place where you can fuck up once and destroy everything is the
That's
where
all
you
right.
want to
Rogues
try
are
something
safe.
new.
If you make it past level 12 as a rogue, you're chilling. You're good.
Have you made it past level 12?
I am currently level 10.
Oh, is that gonna be good? You're gonna
But
die.
what about you, Scott? What have you been up to?
I've been playing hardcore WoW. No, just kidding. Never. Literally, we'll never do that ever. I've been playing a little bit of Path of Exile too. I have a friend at work that had like, I guess you got an extra code if you're like the founder pack or whatever. So he let me use his extra code. It's fun. I'm not huge into the ARPGs, so it's fun. It's like driving my computer insane. It's like horribly optimized, and my computer goes ballistic. But it's been pretty fun, and I've been playing a little bit of WoW. Like I talked about earlier, I was like kind of slowly gearing up the Mistweaver, having a great time healing again, and then with the crest announcements, I kind of put a halt on that to temporarily, kind of get my druid just geared enough to make that easier. Um, but I really am playing anything much lately. It's been like this time of year is crazy. There's
Hmm.
lots going on. I'm hopelessly behind on my Christmas shopping. My wife is done and like gloating to me about how she's been done for a week, and I haven't even barely started. So um, I haven't been playing a lot of video games, but I've been watching a lot of TV and movies. Some good TV out there.
Yeah, there's I don't know if you watched Arcane or not, but my wife and I are probably going to get caught up on that over the holidays next
So I
couple
watched the
weeks here.
first episode of season 2, and
Hmm.
I said, I don't remember anything that happened. So I have to go back and rewatch season
Yeah.
1 to refresh my memory.
That's what my wife did. So that's why we are late to the party. Is she's
Yeah.
like slowly rewatching season 1, and then we're gonna
Yeah. Good
restart.
show. I just did not remember what happened. So who's that again? Why do they hate each other? What? Huh?
So, but I think that really segues us into the next thing that I want to make sure that I call out, and that this is our last episode of the year. So let me open up a calendar, make sure I'm accurate here.
You are.
We will not be having an episode the week of Christmas, so next week, and we will not be having an episode the week of New Year's, so the following week. So that brings us to our next released episode will be the 8th of January.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Which will be 1 week before Plunderstorm returns.
And yeah, so we'll have Plunderstorm information, and we'll also be recording on the day that you can rescue Khadgar from his magical wheelchair.
And I'm sure it'll be very important and illuminating, and we'll understand why they held this back for us for so long.
So yeah, that is where we're at. So if you're missing us over the holidays, feel free to message us on Twitter. Sorry, I don't know why that word was escaping
I
me.
believe it's called X now. Your body
Yeah,
was
well,
rejecting
that's
the
never
old.
gonna stick for me. Sorry, sorry, Elon. You're gonna have to try harder on that one.
He's trying so hard though.
but yeah, I think that's it for today's show, Scott. Unless there's anything else that you wanted to call out.
No, I'm good. It was a good year of World of Warcraft, and I'm excited about 2025. I think it's gonna be good. I'm optimistic about the place the game is going. I'm very excited for what 11.2 is going to bring, and can't wait to see it.
Well, I will give everybody a little bit of a sneak peek into probably what we're going to talk about in our first episode back. And so, since the year is wrapping up, 2024 had a lot in it that I think a lot of people are forgetting at the very beginning of 2024.
Yeah.
And so, Scott and I are going to do like a year in review, kind of our favorite times in 2024 and everything like that. There was just a lot of stuff that I wanted to cover today, so it didn't really fit the schedule.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's still a lot of stuff to cover cover in the new year, but
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
going to be what I
it's
want to
going to be
cover.
interesting. Will the season 2 have hit the PTR by the time we meet again?
Mm-hmm.
Will there be a lot of news? Will there be any kind of dev stuff? There was an Ian interview in PC Gamer magazine today, I think, where he's talking about raid design stuff. I hadn't gotten a chance to read it yet, but it seems like they're gearing up for more press stuff. So I don't know.
Well, as we go on this extended break, and it is the holidays, and people are starting to get time off work and be able to have more time to play games, really, I want to know kind of, what's your plans in WoW? Are you doing anything with the new patch? Are you doing anything in Classic? Are you doing anything in SOD now that there's giant changes out in SOD? So yeah, just let us know. What are you doing in World of Warcraft? And as always, guys, it's yelling into the void wow at gmail.com for email. YouTube is at yelling into the void wow, and Twitter is at into the void wow.
And make sure if you're not already subscribed to the podcast or the YouTube that you do so right now. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, as the kids say. You can find us on YouTube, on iTunes, Spotify, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts are available.
And as always, please consider liking and subscribing and commenting on the YouTube video. I always enjoy chatting with people and kind of going into deeper talks about our discussions throughout the episode. So
yeah,
go ahead.
There was some great conversation last week around some of the the crest stuff and
Mhm.
that mountain and how fast it should be or not fast or time gating and some great conversations the last couple weeks. So be a part of it. Join
Yes.
the conversation.
For sure. And also, all of that helps us get exposed to new people too. So if you like what we do here and you want us to have more people to interact with, or you want to have more people to interact with on the videos, all of that helps us out, gets us exposed to more people, and really starts to push us higher and higher up that ladder. So I appreciate everybody who does comment and likes the video and subscribes. So hope to see you guys out there again in the comments. But hey, guys, until next week, we'll just be over here. Well, I guess not next week. Until
Next
next
year.
year, we'll be over here yelling into the void.